Hello, my name is Johan Burger. I am a consultant with the Institute for Security Studies in Pretoria. Welcome to View on Africa. I'll be talking to you today on the issue of the military deployment on the Cape Flats in the Western Cape, South Africa. Now, over the last few weeks, there's been a lot of talk about whether this is a good or a bad thing, and what the implications are, possible consequences of having the military deployed amongst the civilian population in South Africa. Now, I think one should just go back to why this became necessary. The Western Cape has the second highest murder ratio in South Africa. At about 56 murders per 100,000 of the population compared to the national average of 35. That gives us an indication of how serious the problem is in the Western Cape, and most of these murders happens on the Cape Flats, mostly between rival gangs or in some of the areas that is largely the colored community and the black community in the Western Cape. We can discuss all of the possible reasons for all of this, but I think the issue here is that everyone is entitled to their own, to have a safe environment, to be able to exercise their right to life and a decent living, to feel safe in their own communities, and so forth. Everything that most of us feel that we are entitled to. Now, generally the people in the Western Cape for the last number of years have not had those rights, been able to exercise those rights because of the daily dangers that they are exposed to. And even when they are not directly targeted by these gangs, they often become innocent victims of rival gangs who fight each other, who openly shoot in the streets, and then stray bullets could kill innocent people inside of their homes. Now, the communities, the local communities in those areas seems to have lost trust and confidence in the ability of the South African Police Service to provide them with the safety that they are entitled to. So increasingly there has been calls for the deployment of the military to try and provide the kind of safety that people felt they should have. And of course there was some resistance from the police over the years who said that they are fully in control of the situation, that they don't need the military, and so forth. Of course, the rising murder rates and other crime levels in the Western Cape showed otherwise. And just this previous weekend, we had 13 murders in different incidents in an area called Philippi East on the Cape Flats. Now, this is just one example of a very, very high level of violence, and especially murder. There are many other examples across the Cape Flats. So eventually, I think the political leadership agreed that we need to do something, and that something manifested itself in the deployment of the military on the Cape Flats in support of the police. And of course, the Constitution provides for this kind of deployment. Section 201 of the Constitution says the only person that can authorize this deployment is the President of the country, and he did indeed authorize this deployment for a period of 3 months, a period which could be extended if required. And the idea then is that they would be deployed in cooperation with the police. In practical terms, this means that they will be deployed to support the police. And from what we are now hearing the military say is that their deployments would largely be to assist the police service to provide protection to the police, where they are then employed to perform their primary duties, such as search and seizure, and mainly searching for firearms and other deadly weapons that are being used by these criminal gangs. And of course, they would be also searching for other issues such as stolen property, drugs, which is the main business item amongst that these criminals fight for. And the rivalry between these gangs are usually for the sole right to deal in these drugs, and therefore we have these constant gang wars in the Western Cape. That, I think, is at the heart of that problem. So the military are now in the process of being deployed in the Western Cape. I think over the next 3 months we'll see how this is practically pans out in terms of how they are utilized. Personally, I think they should be utilized in two ways. The one is direct support to the police, where the police carry out their search and seizure operations, and also in a second role in terms of visible patrols in especially high crime areas, high risk areas, where the police have been very reluctant to carry out patrols. So hopefully the military would be utilized in those areas to exercise control over those areas, to act as a deterrent to those criminal groups, and to allow the police the space to carry out their duties, such as to not just search and seizure operations, but also to conduct the investigations, to identify the perpetrators of this violence, and also to make certain that that investigations are conducted properly, so that these criminals can be successfully prosecuted. So I think this is what we now see, that the communities themselves asked for the deployment of the military. This is not forced upon them. This is something they wanted, and this is a call that was heeded by the political leadership. And certainly, I think this would address the fears that communities have if they see the military deployed in this way. The presence of the state becomes more visible, so that communities feel that they are not neglected and left behind, as often we hear them accuse government of, and then hopefully will allow the police in this short space of 3 months to do what is necessary to bring the perpetrators to book, and to show that the state cares for its citizens, irrespective of where they live in this country. So for the moment, I think we must accept that we will have the military in the Cape Flats at least for the next 3 months, and perhaps longer. But we must also understand that utilizing the military and even the police are short-term solutions. It will assist in terms of bringing down levels of violence, in terms of identifying the perpetrators, arresting them, and ensuring that they are properly prosecuted. But then there needs to be also medium and longer term interventions in terms of dealing with the conditions that causes all of the violence that we see. And this relates to socioeconomic conditions that is hugely misunderstood. There's a clear lack of understanding about these issues. But if these problems, the socioeconomic problems, are not properly identified and addressed, over the medium to longer term, we will continue to see this kind of violence. As soon as the military is removed, we'll be back to where we were. So it needs this kind of two-pronged approach: short-term, military involvement, military deployment, in support of the police service, the police carrying out their various functions, and the medium and longer-term interventions that deals with the socio-economic problems at the root of the violence in the Western Cape. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining View on Africa, and until next time, thank you.